Depending on where you park when you arrive on Sunday morning, maybe you come through this door, or this one, or perhaps this door, or if you're visiting Bering for the first time, this door. Although a few of our people still use this one, and that's cool too. For me personally, this is my favorite door at Bering. Early on Sunday mornings, this is the door I walked through in anticipation of our being together. When we used to worship together here on Sundays, I would come through this door with a sermon all welled up inside me, and sometimes a class too, just dying to share with you the wonderful story of God. This door is also the door I entered on Tuesdays through Fridays, usually the first one here, to come be with the Lord, to study, to write, and then eventually to see you in varying ways, like our women's Bible study on Wednesday mornings. But this door is also precious to me because it was the very first door I entered 10 years ago on audition weekend. Paul picked up Jen and I at the hotel, stopped at the kolache factory a block up from here, and then parked in the Bering parking lot, and then brought us here to come in and meet with the ad hoc committee. This door is precious to me for so many reasons. The very first door I remember, the earliest door I remember from early childhood, was at my grandparents' house in South Texas. Just like our home here at Bering, I never remember going through the front door. When we went to my grandparents' house, always through the side door at the back of their house, a screen door that opened into a little screened laundry room that went into another door that led into my grandmother's kitchen. My cousins and I would come in and out of that screen door all day long after chasing cows and riding our bicycles and shooting my BB gun and sitting on my papa's motorcycle pretending to rev the throttle. We would swing open that screen door and we'd already be in the kitchen when it would slam shut behind us. We'd get something to drink out of the fridge and then barrel back outside, pushing open the screen door with excitement to get back on our bicycles. And by the time the screen door slammed shut again, and we heard my mama yelling something that we could not identify, what I now have no doubt was, "Stop slamming the screen door." But we had not a care in the world coming in and out of that door from sun up to sundown somewhere in the country out in South Texas. I still, to this day, think about that screen door at my grandparents' house, even though I have not swung open that door since I was 12 years old. My papa died that year, so my mama, my grandmother, moved into another place. But I remember what it was like, with great fondness, how that door welcomed me and blessed me, my coming out and my going in. We ended the last time we were together in Psalm 121 with the last line, "The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore." You're going out into exile, and you're coming in as you hope to come back home. Like a child who is always running out the door, but who also is always coming back in, we live our lives going out and coming back in. And so today, as we open Psalm 122 together, the third of the 15 songs of Ascent, our songs of hope that have been given to us by the people of God who wanted to go home from Babylon and Persia, their hope to go home to Jerusalem. We, just like our spiritual ancestors from long ago, long for home. a doorway, a gate that exists in our hope. The word of the Lord from Psalm 122, verse 1. I rejoiced with those who said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord." The first word in Psalm 122 is the Hebrew word for rejoicing. We rejoice even now as we anticipate getting to come back to this place. As we text and call and say to one another over Zoom, "Let us go to the house of the Lord." Rejoicing. And for many of us, this door is like the gates of Old Jerusalem that the people long to walk through to go home. Our tradition of thinking that, oh, this is just a building, might need to expand a little bit after this season, because distance has made our hearts grow fonder for our sacred spaces where we used to gather. Just listen here to verse 2. Verse 2 of Psalm 122, our feet are standing in your gates, Jerusalem. Our feet are standing in your gates. These are words of imagination, not yet realized. They are words spoken in the present about their hope for the future, which is why they are so appropriate for us today. The reason we are filled with rejoicing is that our hope is rooted firmly in the living God. 122 verses 1 and 2 open the song. I rejoiced with those who said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord." Our feet are standing in your gates, Jerusalem. Our hope today is in God. That's true whether we are here together at 1910 or scattered around the Houston area, or what is actually our case at Bering now that we are doing this online, scattered around the United States. And so it's no wonder that our song for today is a song that dreams about a place we hope to get to go up to someday. And then to the next verses. Verses 3 through 5. Jerusalem is built like a city that is closely compacted together. That is where the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, to praise the name of the Lord according to the statute given to Israel. There stand the thrones for judgment, the thrones of the house of David. To some of you, this, our front door, was the gate you walked through your first time here at Bering. As we look forward one day to welcoming others through this door, this gate, some of us remember our first time coming to this place. The verses we just read were verses of hope not yet seen. The reason they describe Jerusalem as a city closely compacted together is like describing to a child something that they've never seen. Almost every person who sang these words originally had never actually been to Jerusalem. They were like a child when asked, "What's your favorite city?" And they say, "Paris." And you ask, "Have you ever been to Paris?" And they say, "No, but I want to." It is a city of dreams. And I've been thinking about that lately. As a song by the Talking Heads has been rolling around in my imagination, a song called City of Dreams. That song is about how, despite things like genocide and wars, the hope of the human heart never dies. And then, this is the rest of the song. From the last section of Psalm 122, verses 6 through 9. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you be secure. May there be peace within your walls and security within your citadels. For the sake of my family and friends, I will say, peace be within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your prosperity. When they are singing Psalm 122 about pray for the peace of Jerusalem, I hear that as less of a command and more of a statement of hope. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem is not some nationalistic cry, as it is the song of a desperate people hoping that one day they will be back together again within the peace of the walls of Jerusalem. It is a song of longing, more like, pray that one day we will be able to once again live together in peace in Jerusalem. But the truth is, when they get back to Jerusalem one day, they are going to discover two big things. Jerusalem has changed, and they have changed. Things will not be the same because they are not the same. The other door I remember from my childhood was probably my very favorite door in the world. It was a revolving door at the bank. It was not an automatic revolving door, unless I was there, because while the adults were doing their boring banking stuff, I was in the revolving door the whole time, pushing it round and round and round. Eventually, I outgrew all of that. The door didn't change, but I did. I changed. And I suppose that's how all stories go. We change. Psalm 122 was sung by the people during an in-between time. It was an in-between time for the people going into exile, what later generations would simply call Babylon, and the people going back home to a Jerusalem they'd never seen. They have only heard about it and dreamed about it. When Psalm 122 is taken out of the larger collection of Psalms 120 through 134, it becomes a nationalistic song about Jerusalem. But when read in context of the people's hope, the people of God who hoped for the redemption and rescue of God's people who just want to go back home, suddenly Psalm 122 is not about Jerusalem at all. Psalm 122 is about God's people living peacefully in the story of God, with God, in God's presence all day, every day. Psalm 122 becomes our song today because we are praying right now not only for us, but for our children and our children's children. For the sake of our family and friends, we pray for peace. And just like Psalm 122, as they sing about their city of dreams, the song is really about their hope. It's really a song about our walk with God. I think that's so important for us to remember these days, that ultimately, no matter how uncomfortable and disorienting this time is, even this, is part of our story with God. I can understand why the people got so attached to Jerusalem. It was the place where they lived alongside each other as they told the story of God. But praying for the peace of Jerusalem was in Psalm 122 a prayer for the future. It was for a Jerusalem that did not exist at the time, except actually it did. It existed among the people in their hearts as they longed to go back to their physical locations where they lived the story of God. See, right now, Bering, as we know it, does not exist as a physical location. I mean, Psalm 122 becomes our prayer for the future, for a Bering that does not exist at this time, except actually it does. It exists among us in our hearts as we long to go back to our physical location where we tell the story of God. But for now, we are still telling the story of God, and we are living our story. For the sake of my family and friends, I will say, peace be within you. And we will go back, but it won't be the same, because we are not the same. Just as the people of God who arrived back home in Jerusalem were not the same. But the exile was a part of their story. And it was a part of their story that they told in order to tell the story of God. But we all know what never changes. In the midst of all this change, in the midst of the people going out into exile while they were there and coming back in the midst of all this change for us, we know that one thing does not change. God is faithful, and we are the people of Jesus, and we just want to go home. But home does not have to meet our standards in order to be home. Even though it will be different, the Lord of our lives is still the Lord of our lives. And so I rejoiced with those who said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet are standing in your gates." Amen.